Welcome back to another episode of the XRP podcast, and it's going to be a banger today because I've got Jake Claver going to be jumping in on this episode, and we're going to do two things. We're going to break down what happens on Friday, because remember, we got a big crypto summit coming up after the, of course, State of the Union last night. We might talk a little bit about that, but what happens on Friday? How does this respond to where the market is? And also, what kind of impact could this have on Ripple and XRP? We'll also talk about post-clarity. Could we be seeing a new market position for XRP post-clarity? Jake and I will break all of that down. As you guys know, make sure and like and subscribe right here on the channel. One of the greatest things you can do to help support it. And did you know we actually have a member program here on YouTube? We launched it as kind of an add-on and wasn't really sure if you guys were interested in it. If you are, and you continue to join, because now I think we're up a couple hundred members in there. So one, thank you for that. But I think the key is what would you guys like to see? More closed member content? Would you like to see additional interviews that are member only? Drop it in the comments down below. Just let me know. Our team will, of course, analyze all that good stuff and get that back to you. I want to thank our sponsor today, and that is Uphold, where you guys can earn crypto better. A lot of things happening with Uphold staking rewards, so you can stake up to 20 different cryptocurrencies and get into the reward side of things. New tokens, early access, along with full transparency. This is one of the best platforms out there to make trades on when it comes to crypto. The other thing you guys should be doing is this right here. Get the card. The XRP rewards card, which comes in the form of an Uphold debit card. And the nice thing about this, guys, is you can do this without a credit check. Also get up to 6% back on all your purchases for the first 3 months. You can get up to 10% back with a direct deposit stacked in on this. So this is one of the best values out there when it comes to a debit card where you can get into your digital assets. Make sure and check out Uphold. Use the link down below. Let them know we sent you. Let's get going today because it's going to be a good one. I want to bring in Jake Claver coming in from Digital Ascension Group. How are you, Jake?
Bless, brother. Thank you again for having me back.
Nice to see you. We missed each other in Miami. I'm looking at my Telegram and I realize, wait a minute, Jake's in Miami.
Yeah.
What is going on here, man? So of course I know you were busy, but next time you're down here, we gotta catch up. For sure. All right. Hey, listen, we got a lot happening in the markets right now. Obviously, the situation with the State of the Union address last night, I put out a couple tweets. I was disappointed that we heard nothing about digital assets, not a thing. I get it, what Trump is trying to do. And sometimes I think he plays a little coy to the markets. But what was your take on the overall narrative that he was trying to spin?
Well, I mean, I think we're in a good spot. I mean, all the things he said was true, right? Like we've seen a lot of changes. We said he was going to do when he came into office, as far as removing illegals and a lot of the things that may or may not be. Like, I'm not on either side of the aisle on a lot of that stuff, but I will say he's delivered on a lot of things. I think he's navigated international affairs very well, and pensions and 401ks and everything else are at an all-time high. I don't know how long that's going to last. I think there could be some downside in the market with sentiment in crypto where it's at. I'm hopeful that there's a rotation and reversal there, and we see some upside in crypto since that's been going down.
Exactly.
Everything else has trended up. But I think you kind of have both sides of it. There's people that don't necessarily like Trump, and it was his normal Trump self.
Yep.
Advocating for his, achievements and what they've done and all that. So there's a lot of people that were excited about it. They think that we're moving into a golden age here in the US, and I kind of think similar. I think
could be a good time. Could be a good time. Depending on where you are in the market. I think, obviously we've seen the crypto market cap start to accelerate a little bit, now up to 2.27, Bitcoin holding slightly in the 24. Of course, XRP up slightly in the 24, now up above 140. So that's good news, but we are seeing some dominance slipping.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at that and you think about the narrative that Trump just delivered on the State of the Union, because he's, this golden age, that usually indicates that you're going to have some markets that start to shift a little. So we've kind of seen that play coming. Some people think that the AI play is softened a little bit. I think it's probably strengthening. I think the softening will probably be the software play, the SaaS products that seem to be getting replaced. But when you get into digital assets, the behemoth, of course, Bitcoin out there holding the position. I saw this story right here. Let me bring that one up. And that, of course, is that the crypto market is recovering slightly as we are reporting right now. Bitcoin is at 67.2, holding in. And then, of course, you have Bitcoin dominance starting to fall. So what do you make of that? Bitcoin dominance going down, Trump's narrative of the golden age, gold holding up above 5K.
Yeah.
Give me a picture here.
I've been waiting for Bitcoin to continue to fall and the dominance to rotate. I think that this cycle is going to be different. I mean, you could say really inherently it already has been. Bitcoin was at an all-time high previous to the halving, which has never occurred before.
Yeah.
And that was through the advent of the ETFs. I mean, those went live in January of 24, and we saw a significant rise even before, it was kind of buy the rumor, sell the news type thing. Mm-hmm. We've started to see a rotation out of Bitcoin at this point, but I don't know that liquidity is going to make its way into traditional, crypto markets the way that it has in the past. Normally, Bitcoin is all held on exchanges. Now, Bitcoin's held primarily through these DATs and ETFs. It's going to be through other structured products that are out there in the market that I think we'll see that rotation into. And I think XRP was up in the first 5 minutes this morning. We were at 5 million in inflows, so maybe that's already started.
Well, and that is exactly right. You're talking about the surge we saw because that's been a little bit of a recent low, but now the volume of payments between accounts increased a lot. I think it was like by 400% in terms of a jump. With all of that going on, and then you look at, right now we're looking at the markets right there. You've got Bitcoin dominance starting to, what are we at? 58.5. So it's down significantly from where we were just a little bit ago. We had tipped out right almost at 60%. So that's a pretty significant fall off. I mean, if you look at kind of the sideways action of where dominance has been all the way back into November of last year, which is when we had clipped over almost 61%. With this playing into it, and then you look at ETH now trading above 2,000 after today, and some of the news that hit out, I think, that has been somewhat of a narrative that, AI payments will eventually settle on ETH and Solana, and that there's going to be an inter-exchange. I'm curious as to why we have not seen XRP in that, narrative and discussion, because at some point you're going to need cross-border settlement. So even with the AI tools that are out there. So what do you think?
EVM is important. So the Ethereum virtual machine that Ethereum's it's a component of the blockchain. It's not the blockchain itself.
Yeah.
We have the EVM sidechain on the XRPL that allows for settlement through XRP. For more robust smart contracts, it needs to be coded in Python and Solidity or some more advanced languages like Soroban smart contracts on XLM and Hyperledger are kind of lightweight. So if you need, a bit more functionality and you need some stipulations built in there, which AIs will, right? If they're transacting between one another,
sure.
Ethereum is poised to do very well with that. But I think it's probably more the Ethereum virtual machine than Ethereum, the blockchain itself.
Yeah, the EVM side of it, which is exactly where I think everybody has been going in terms of trend spotting, around this. We're using a handful of these open claws to start to do some interesting tool execution for us. I'm surprised that it actually, it kind of scared me and surprised me on what it's capable of. Have you played with this yet? Have you done any yet?
Actually, I just read an article this morning that talks about, you really kind of have 3 years left before AI is going to be so extensive that it permeates, all different portions of your life. And you really don't even realize that it's doing it. The large language models are starting to iterate on top of themselves. Mm-hmm. At this point. They aren't using humans. A lot of it's synthetic.
Yeah.
And it'll continue to compound at a rate that I don't think people really understand. The agentic economy that's coming, it's great for a couple things, right? It allows for GDP to scale infinitely. It's not capped per person anymore, which is how, we've lived pretty much all of our lives. We haven't been able to rely on anything else outside of humans. But, Yeah, I'm excited for it, but also very scared at the same time that we end up with like a Skynet situation, like
Well,
Terminator.
and I think the narrative that is starting to circle in Wall Street, because Wall Street kind of sold off a little bit, at least on the software side, because of the scale capacity of what we're seeing here in early 2026. The early stages of what we've seen with these closed open claw tool sets that essentially are eating up white collar work, and it's starting to eat up mostly software tools that, as we've seen, SaaS has been a big product, but I think the SaaS products are on life support at this point forward, and we're already seeing that in the S&P 500. Now, we're going to have a lot more coverage on this, guys, but there is a very interesting scenario, I think, that if you're in digital assets, if you are in work that is blue collar, and I won't say manual labor, but technical labor,
Mhm.
or if you're in some sort of high level service, healthcare, et cetera, those are going to be the areas I think that end up surviving in the short term. I'm not sure about long term, but short term, we're going to see a lot of, I think digital asset trading is becoming the number one way for people to make money, because we're going to see so many job losses in the white collar area. So be on the lookout for that, because that is a dystopian future that, I mean, obviously we're going to have to change fast, but I don't think anybody is ready for the speed
No.
in which we're going to have to respond to this.
It's going to be an exponential move. And if you're not already, you guys are working with the models and the agents. If you don't understand any of this stuff, I would highly encourage you to just get your hands
It's a
dirty,
work.
get in there, yeah,
Yeah.
and start using it, because the efficiencies that you can create for yourself. Like there was a podcast that I watched, probably it was 3 years ago at this point, and it was just when AI was coming out. They said,
Mhm.
at some point in the future, you'd have $1 trillion companies that had 3 employees that were people.
Yeah, there was a guy that was on just the other day that said he thinks that the first $1 trillion or no, that there will be $1 billion businesses built by single entrepreneurs every day. And that we could see, to your point, the first $1 trillion company with less than 10 people.
Yeah.
That's insane, man.
It is
That
wild to think
that's
that, right?
insane.
But that's the way it's moving. And if you're able to capitalize on that, you put yourself into a position where you understand this and you have unique knowledge in your domain of expertise and you can apply that. That's when these opportunities, because you could vibe code. Like I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of people even know that. Like
Yeah.
you can
Realizing
give
that.
the AI
Yeah.
what you want to build for an app and it will go code it for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's insane, the tool sets that have I mean, just some of the things that we used to spend a lot of money in developers doing. We completely upgrade all of our Pine scripts now via AI, because it understands the code better than the developers that developed it in the original. We're doing a lot of now. I'm surprised at the podcast research that it's capable of going out and finding the best in the best of in the industry in terms of guests for us, which is fantastic. We've started to implement it in some of the sentiment tools, and we used to have to check it a lot
mhm.
because we felt like there were some inaccuracies within it, and it always needed that human double check. And now we're finding fewer and fewer and fewer inaccuracies. So very interesting. What do you think about the moral divide on this?
It's coming whether you like it or not. And that's the problem. Like if you have a progressive technology, it tends to be adopted by people that are malicious first. I mean, we saw
Yeah,
that with pretty much the internet and crypto, and but over time it gets democratized and usable
sure.
by the broader audience. And I think it'll be the same way with AI. Look,
Yeah,
like everything's on a bell curve. People have this dystopian or utopian outlook about things. It's always somewhere in the middle. Um, and I think this will be no different.
yeah,
There'll be guardrails that are put up. There'll be some regulations around it. But there'll still be people that are bad actors that use it for malicious activity. And we just need to have consequences put in place for that.
yeah, for sure. I don't want to get in too much AI. We could probably talk a while on this, but I want to talk about the summit coming up on Friday, which is both. It may actually we may actually have banking guys show up, but supposedly we're going to have crypto leaders there and major banking institutions there, including Ripple. This is Friday the 27th. What are we? Yeah, just 2 days away. this is a pivotal moment because this I think is going to really start to hammer out the Clarity Act alignment that also will play nice, I think, with Genius. But the interesting point I want to get at is when you think about everything that's happened so far, where we are in the potential for clarity, I think Polymarket is still kind of sideways. What are some of the things you're looking for that could be good coming out of this meeting for Ripple and XRP?
So kind of two separate things. The main oppositions that the Democrats have been around DeFi and how it's going to be regulated in the bill.
Yep.
I think that they'll probably strip that out, and that'll be something that they codify later on in order to get this one across the line. Like Brad Garlinghouse talks about, don't let, perfection stay in the way of progress.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we are going to see movement forward here. There's a lot of people on both sides. It's bipartisan that people want to see this get passed. Patrick Witt came out and said, by Easter, we're looking for this to get across the line. And with midterms, toward the end of the year here, if there's a change in regime for, the House and the Senate, it may be more difficult to get things passed. So I think this may be, the final year, and we definitely want to see progress on it. With the banks and institutions and the stable coins, I don't really care either way, but I think people do, right? Like the general public wants to be able to earn a yield and be liquid and do all the things that you would want to with a stable coin. You can do that with tokenized deposits.
Yeah.
And maybe if they put a framework around tokenized deposits alongside the Genius Act in this bill that allows, retail to be able to earn a return for holding cash, that'll incentivize them to keep their money at the banks, which is what the banks are worried about. They're worried about, Coinbase or some of these other counterparties being able to pay a return on the stable coins. And it's, to the tune of like $6 trillion that would flow out of the banks and move over there because they're going to pay them a higher yield.
But they already have this right now. I mean, you have it in money market, and now we've got tokenized money markets out there that are doing this. So it's already existing, and we didn't see the flight of capital other than normal flight of capital, which is going to markets that work.
Yeah. Well, it's crypto native people, right? And I think they're just scared that more people are going to see the opportunity if there is full clarity around this and it's not ambiguous, that they're going to see, and it won't be all $6 trillion, right? Like a lot of people use a bank account. They're accustomed to that. That's what they want to use. We've already seen them move to digital wallets as their infrastructure. So they've known this is coming for a while. But I view stable coins more for inter-bank settlement. It allows the banks to be able to generate a return for holding treasuries, to be able to settle within their own walls and be interoperable with other counterparties.
Right.
I want that domestic demand for treasuries. If we don't have that, and we have, all of these other people de-risked from the dollar and all that flows back here, we have to have some way to drive enough demand to stabilize the bond market. And I think that's the whole premise behind it, actually. So that's my 2 cents. I think we'll get tokenized deposits where patrons and retail are able to generate a return, and the banks will keep, the returns for the treasuries that they have that back the other.
I think it's good if Alderati has talked about this. He will be there most likely in these negotiations. This is Ripple's CLO. But he thinks a compromise. This would allow, maybe to your point, regulated yield, which would be more of a path to, payment stablecoin definitions. This would allow Ripple to scale its liquidity products, which is interesting because now you got institutional capital flow, which would be through Ripple's ODL. Perfect, in terms of what this looks like.
They're doing treasury management at this point. So if they did want people to hold ROUSD and be able to generate a return on that, that'd be great. You definitely gets more adoption for their stable coin in that capacity, which they're already in the market with, right? They're, the acquisition of Ripple Prime, which was Hidden Road, and G Treasury, which is now Ripple Treasury. The whole stack of Ripple One, which is their product that's all integrated with stablecoin issuance and everything else they've done for custody and digital ID. They're in a very unique position to capitalize on this. And I think I don't want to say Brad's laissez-faire, but he's like, it really doesn't matter which way it goes as long as we have something in place, and we're going to be able to run because we're so far ahead of everybody else.
No doubt. Well, I mean, their position, when you look at the institutional floodgate that would potentially open up here, this is good for Ripple again, because it's really always been about bank adoption, if you think about it. So this would possibly set up a roadmap for depository institutions now to provide custody and settlement right there. So you've got, especially on digital assets, so U.S. banks would be right there. This would be perfect for what Ripple has been lined up for. So it's kind of that final box to check when it comes for what Garlinghouse has been trying. I want to take a minute, guys, and just invite you to join the Barron Market Edge private member group. You guys can do that by just clicking the link down in our description. This is your insider's edge to the AI and crypto money revolution, which is what we really focus on here on PBN. This is additional research that I do along with our team. We have a pretty significant team on our research around not only what guides our episodes, but a lot of that research gets built into more content that I drop here on the Barron Market Edge. We do market trends and sentiment analysis, which can be anything from tokens to all sorts of strategies. This, of course, will also guide you over to our Telegram group, and we give this as elite community access. You get bonus content over there, including tax guides, as well as different kinds of asset guides out there that we drop all the time. This is your 10-year vision in action. All you have to do, of course, is just hit that little subscribe button or join the community and get in on it. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you a thing, so check it out. What do you make of, and I should say, do you think they will talk about the digital asset stockpile? And will they do anything?
So I actually posted on Twitter not too long ago that Trump had talked about XRP, and many people came back and said, "When did Trump talk about XRP?" I'm like, there was an actual tweet. Here it is. You can see it where he said XRP, Cardano, and the others for the digital asset treasury back in the day, and we saw it pop off the market when it happened, and obviously it's dwindled down since then. But if we do get something about that, and we do know which ones are going to be in that stockpile, or maybe they've audited the government at this point, and they know how much they hold of these different cryptocurrencies, because that's what David Sachs said when he first got in there. He said, look, we know we have this Bitcoin that we've confiscated, but we really don't know what the U.S. government holds across all these other ones. There's never been a full audit done. So maybe, they've done that audit, and now they're going to be able to announce, like, we have this much on our balance sheet that we can allocate toward a crypto treasury. That'd be a great way to turn the market around.
Well, it would give government level recognition of some of these bigger tokens, including, I think XRP would be right there in the middle of it for a strategic asset. So, and plus when you layer it in, just the international payment component, that's a fundamental shift, moving forward. And it also legitimizes kind of its role in the financial stack, the global financial stack, which we talk about here on this show all the time. I know you do as well. But that's a big opportunity. This is where David Sachs has got to get the ball across the line. If he does not get a reserve in place, a digital asset reserve, would you fire this guy?
I think it's a very big missed opportunity if we don't do it. And I mean, Trump's already
talked about missed opportunity.
Trump's already talked about paying off the debt using crypto multiple times, right? And I think that's really kind of the only way out of this mess that they've created with the amount of debt that they've issued, is you need assets to appreciate on the balance sheet that they have to offset that, right?
Right.
Assets and liabilities. They tried the tariff thing. They tried, incentivizing, citizenship for certain amounts of money. There's a lot of ways to skin that cat, but I think this is the easiest way. If you get behind something and the utility of it pushes the price up, or there's a supply shock because there's FOMO that pushes it to a level it can be used. Yeah. That's the real solution. And then they don't have to reprice things like they did with gold back in 1933. Yeah.
Well, and you're exactly right. Repricing might get in the game here. We're looking at the Clarity Act signed into law over on Polymarket. As you saw the big drop over on the 22nd, a lot of that was because I think that some of the bankers got overzealous on the negotiations. The White House, that's of course what I think triggered this summit, on Friday. And of course it dropped down to in the 40s, and it's been holding right there. Here we are leveling out at 48%. So basically it's a coin toss on if this thing goes through or not. Let's assume that we get clarity, okay, in some format or other. What would be your positioning for XRP at that time? Clarity passes, and we'll kind of go moderate, bull, and bear. Okay.
Okay.
Let's go with a full passage scenario.
I mean, I think maybe we'll get this on Friday or earlier this week.
Yeah.
I think clarity around XRP already exists. I think it's a commodity. It's listed on Binomial. It's traded there. The CFTC has oversight. But if we do see clarity passed, it allows for interoperability. Like there's going to be value on other chains, right? We've seen XRP, wrapped on Solana. You got interoperability with Chainlink and other things. You need oracles. You need all these other systems to be able to be workable, and XRP will play its role
Exactly.
in all of that. But the more value that moves on chain, the more transactions that happen, the more that needs to be settled, the higher the price of the token has to be in order to be able to facilitate that. And I've said many times, I think 3-4 digits is kind of the bottom of the barrel for what it's actually supposed to be used for.
Well, and it would officially classify XRP as a digital commodity, so that in itself, that's the green light for U.S. banks now to bring in ODL. So that's huge. ETF impact would probably be good as well, I would think.
Tons of inflows.
Yeah. Which is going to bring, to a certain level, the price up. What do you make of the mix of how ETF and fund managers have to go to market to draw in XRP versus how they're doing it right now? How do you see that playing out?
Well, right now it's kind of spot, right? And there's a few crypto ETFs that are, variety. So we looked at creating some ETFs earlier, and doing the first one is a big deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scrutiny around it. They put it through the ringer. But once an ETF's listed, if you're launching another ETF and you're holding a basket of other ETFs, very easy to get across the line in comparison. Still not, cheap, or there's time and resources that are involved there. But, as this scales out, I think that we've seen a product on the annuity side. This is the sexiest thing in insurance right now, is 75% S&P and 25% Bitcoin.
Oh,
that's
okay.
the sexiest thing that they have.
Interesting. That's what you get.
Yeah.
That's super sexy.
But I think that you're going to see a lot more, like when they're able to underwrite the risk of this stuff much lower than what they currently see in the market today, and there is clarity around it, and they have confidence that this is how it's going to be taxed and used and all these things, and this is kind of what backs it, you're going to see a proliferation. There's going to be tons of people that, put this in their ETFs or hold other XRP ETFs in their ETF as an allocation.
Right.
And going to market that way and presenting it as, a store of value, upside, asymmetric bet, all those things, I think is a great way for managers to be able to draw in more capital and soak up more XRP. And that inevitably pushes the price higher because there's less on the market.
That is the bull case if all of these things occur. If that were to happen by the end of 2026, where would you envision XRP's price?
Again, I'll just kind of take it back to Monica Long. So she was on XRP Community Day a couple weeks ago, and she was asked, where are we at in 2026 for the XRPL and XRP? And she said, full scale institutional adoption.
Yep.
And then David Schwartz later in the evening, I was listening to him as well, and he said, look, the main opposition, one, most people think it's clarity that we need around this. He said, it's actually not. It's the volatility of the assets themselves that the banks don't want to hold, which you mentioned ODL multiple times. That's a solution, but that pays money to Ripple. They would rather have that on their balance sheet, get the appreciation to be able to use it. So for me, when David Schwartz and Arthur Brito and many others in the past have talked about XRP, they talk about high stable price. If you think about the inflows in the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ or one of these larger indexes, it takes billions of dollars, a lot of money, to move it 1%, either direction, right? And if you have a huge market cap for XRP, something much higher than people can comprehend, it can be very difficult to move that price much with the inflows or outflows. And if you have stability, I think that's what the adoption curve is really waiting on for the banks, is they want a high stable value.
Right. That didn't give me a price.
I've been told by my attorneys that I need to refrain from giving specific price targets moving forward, Paul.
Yeah. All right. I get you. All right. So you're just saying it's a good probability that we could see some improvement in the price if these kind of things happen.
Again, I'll say 3 or 4 digits, in that
All
range. I
right. Well,
think
there
is
you go.
very
All right.
reasonable.
No price, 3 or 4 digits. Jake Claver. His attorneys can get in there and deal with that one. Let's go into the base case. All right. Because that's a bull case.
Yep.
If you get, if you get something like, some legislative, but in general, right now we're kind of in the crypto winter. Liquidity challenges,
Yep.
I think are still here. You look at the Standard Charter revision. This is right now. Standard Charter recently, slashed its forecast from $8 down to $2.80.
Mhm.
So again, this was global liquidity that they were focusing on. And then you get some resistance levels. I think the chart gap was like almost 170 to 225, somewhere through that. But if the bill passes and we get maybe a hybrid approach to, especially the stablecoin side, do you think these guys will reprice their exposure again, like a Standard Charter? Do you think they'll come back and give us a new target?
I do. I think, again, to your point, the institutions are waiting on, like, we're out until we have full certainty on this.
Yeah.
And you have the majority of that from the court case with Ripple and the SEC, stating that XRP is not a security. And then the listing on Binomial, I think, gives it credence that it is a
Exactly.
commodity
Yep.
US. So it's kind of the front runner. You also have to think about the on-chain applications and the amendments that have been, put onto the network for XRP versus some of the other chains.
Yep.
Provenance, Figure and Mike Cagney and all of that, they've been doing digital ID and a bunch of, tokenized equities and private equity and real estate for a while. Really haven't seen a ton of traction there. There's some, but the XRPL, with the way that they've constructed digital identity, credentials, permission decks, and permission domain, you're only able to see certain transactions and participate in certain ecosystems on the mainnet if you have those credentials attached to your permission domain to be able to get access to it. And that's a big deal for the banks.
It is.
So I don't know of any other network that has a similar compliant way for large parties to participate. But, irrespective of that, if we get the clarity, I think it's kind of the go-to choice for banks and institutions with that being live.
Which is what Monica is kind of alluding to, to your point, which is probably why you see this headline right here, XRP bulls saying the big move still ahead, coming up through a handful of analysis based on, some of the charts. But I think really this boils down to more of, look at that expansion target right there. This is, so, I mean, you could look at this and then the canary in the coal mine is, how do banks respond to this? Because that will be the question mark. And I think also the speed in which they respond to it. Do you think they are set up to pull the trigger when this happens? Or do you think there's like a process that we're going to go through months, possibly a year before we see this?
If you had asked me a year ago, I would have said no.
Okay.
Based on, so we just were at the Ondo Summit. I've been to a few other events here in the last 3 or 4 months. The institutions are leaning in.
Yeah.
You've got BNY Mellon custodying ROUSD. You've got Fidelity leaning in. You've got Citi. You've got Franklin Templeton. They're all chomping at the bit to be able to get access to this stuff and use it in their own internal infrastructure. And they've built a lot of proprietary stuff that are, JP Morgan has Onyx, right? It's their own internal mechanism to be able to settle value between all of their institutional counterparties. That's the real application. That's the real value. You need interoperability though. And I think that's what this unlocks when we do get full clarity, is the interoperability of all these things. And that's when you're going to see the exponential move. So yeah, I think they are ready. I don't think
you think they're set up and are in place. Many people are saying, this is a delay tactic by the banks because they were in preparation mode of trying to transition a lot of their structure.
There's some stragglers, but the big players are at the table.
Yeah, they're there. Probably have been for quite some time. In fact, I think most of them are probably chomping at the bit here to try to get this done with a handful. And it's always, kind of a look over here scenario. JP Morgan's done this before, where JP Morgan kind of said, hey, they're throwing shade on Bitcoin, and then over here on the left-hand side, they're buying it, so I don't know. You kind of wonder if that kind of scenario is playing out. it's Occam's razor, baby. It's the most logical thing that could be happening right now for sure. Hey, let's talk about the rest of 2026 here for a moment. A lot of events coming up, here in the spring. This is most likely going to hit on a lot of announcements. Are you anticipating any interesting announcement that people would be surprised at by Ripple, specifically that could correlate to XRP?
I mean, again, Community Day, they just doubled down and advocated that that's at the core of their business. They want to see XRP succeed. I think retail kind of expected for a long time that we would see banks or institutions have the capability to hold segregated wallets and,
Yeah.
earn returns on your XRP and do all these things. I can tell you from my conversations, no, they don't have it.
Yeah.
They are not prepared in that capacity for retail, but for the institutional adoption, they are. I think they may be done with acquisitions for a little while. I mean, I can tell you from going through acquisitions and M&A, it takes a little while to integrate, the companies that you purchased with your current culture and the systems that you have. So, maybe they hold off on some acquisitions until later in 26. That would make sense just with what's kind of transpired up to this point.
Yeah.
They've been running consistent tender offers. I wouldn't be surprised to see another tender offer for people that are holding shares from
Okay.
Ripple.
Yeah.
But as far as like major announcements, I do think that we're going to have on post clarity and some of the NDAs winding up. There's going to be a lot of announcements of who's using the network, who they're partnered with.
Right.
We've already seen, Deutsche Bank came out the other day and said that they're partnering with Ripple. I think you're going to continue to see that roll, and that'll continue to create FOMO for the token and for the company's private equity. And then I'm sure that they'll, announce different products. You got Evernorth here, hopefully finalizing their SPAC sometime in Q1 with Sheesh and Burn.
That should be huge. That should be huge.
Well, and I don't think people really comprehend like why that matters so much. They want to take the XRP that they have and put it to work in DeFi protocols to be able to generate a return and pay, distributions to people or dividends to people that are holding those shares. They're also going to be able to raise debt to be able to buy more XRP at an accelerated rate to have, something that trades above MNAV. So if you wanted leveraged exposure to something, that seems like a fantastic play.
Yeah, that is a good play.
But I think they're going to have, I think they've set it up in a way where they're going to be able to kind of control, it's a separate entity from Ripple. They can seed these DeFi protocols, do due diligence on stuff, make sure that they're vetted before they really get them to scale and bring them to market, which can be great for AMMs, liquidity pools, borrow, lend, all the things that we have. AMMs are already instated, but borrow, lend, and liquidity pools are up for vote on the XPO. And I think here in Q1, we'll probably see those go through as well.
What do you think? Okay, so you got a lot of new products hitting the market. One of them surprised me even, in the speed in which they're coming to market, and that was Coinbase getting into stock trading, zero fee stock trading. Which
that's wild.
Wow.
24/5.
Yeah, it's zero fees. You pay the $5 a month, I think, for the Coinbase one, which is basically a competitor to Robinhood Gold. That's jumping in. And remember that in that lend borrow, XRP is now in the list to where you can lend against. So that's a new little component that I think a lot of the other players in the market
7% over there on Coinbase.
Yeah, it's not bad. I was surprised. But I'm curious as to, they haven't published numbers yet, but I'm just curious what kind of uptake they're going to get with that. This could get interesting very quickly, if
there have been over $1 billion or $2 billion locked for Bitcoin for a while.
Yeah.
And I can tell you there's a lot of interest. We have, a couple products that we've been able to bring to market. We probably got, I don't know, 40 or 50 million in loans against XRP.
That's
over
crazy.
The wealth partners. So, and we're a small player. We have 3,000 clients. So if you have the client base that Coinbase has, I mean, I think you could easily see $1 billion locked up.
That could really lock up some XRP quickly, if they get tracking on it. And if they understood it, I think they still haven't completely dialed into the XRP community like Uphold has. Uphold has done a really good job with that. But Coinbase is kind of on the fence. Robinhood is kind of there, but not. And I anticipate we'll probably see some others. Kraken obviously is still continuing to accelerate into their products and services. We're going to see a lot of new stuff this year. I think we are going to get another surprise out of Brad. And I think he's up to something in the banking sector. Let's just say that. Yeah. So you heard it here, guys. I anticipate a big boy coming in. And I'm not talking about little thing happening. I'm talking about some major, major market shifting news that would make the CNBC talk about it all day long. That's the kind of stuff.
BlackRock, is it, Paul?
I don't think so, but there's some others out there that you guys probably can deduce quickly who might be a target or a possible partner target that would be kind of that joint venture kind of the scenario that might play in it. Just too many things happening right now aligning with what's going on in DC that just makes Ripple it's the only one that could do it, so all of that. Beyond all of that, Digital Ascension Group, what do you guys have going? Anything new, big, coming? What can you share?
Yeah, we got a lot of things that we've been working on for a while. We're working on a platform play. You'll be able to hold crypto there. You'll have your bank account. You'll have your LLC. You'll have all your documentation. It'll streamline it for you, all in one kind of deal. And then that'll be able to democratize access to a lot of the stuff that we've created over the past 2 years with a partnership with Anchorage and a few others. I think that'll be to market at some point here in 26. That'll be big for us. And a lot of people have asked for it, right? Like they want a lot of the assurances and benefits of working with an advisor and having institutional custody, but they don't have, $100,000, $500,000, million, couple $1 million to get access to it yet. And we're doing our best.
This would be better entry points, is what you're saying?
For the market?
Yeah. Lower entry points in terms of capital?
Our current trading structure over there is 20 basis points with no spread.
Okay. All right.
So it is cheaper. But it's not like you get a better price. It's still whatever it's mark to market.
Yeah, sure. Mark to market. Sure. Interesting. Well, that'll be intriguing. Where can they find out more?
Yeah. If you want to go to digitalfamilyoffice.io. So if you're looking for, estate planning or tax attorneys or CPAs or wealth management for your crypto, we do everything end to end private client services that you'd expect from a multifamily office.
Yeah.
And, if you got a larger allocation, we'd love to have a conversation. Or if you're looking to make a larger allocation, and you want a wealth manager that'll actually advise you on which cryptos to buy and has licenses to be able to do it, we're pretty much the only people in the market.
There you go, guys. Jake, always fun getting into it with you. Thank you so much for coming in today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks for having me.
You bet. All right, you guys know what to do. Like and subscribe. We love to get your feedback. You guys are the reason we do this. So thanks again. We'll catch you next time right here on the XRP Pod.